Welcome back to Oneself. My name is Stephen Maher. With me today, with me always is Adam Bartleman, but also with me today is Alex Nelson. Alex is the author of Restoring the Divine Masculine. First of our Finding the Other series. We're just trying to find cool people doing work that we think is cool around the world. So, Alex, thank you so much for joining us today. And can you just tell people a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your life and what you're working on, just introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you so much for having me. It's a great privilege and honor to be here with you guys. So yes, I am the author of the book Restoring the Divine Masculine. It is something that I've been working on for a long time. It's been over a year since I began writing it, but the entire story has been something I've been subconsciously or unconsciously working on throughout my entire life. I am currently working on creating a group or an organized movement to help us co-create the new Earth. And I have a platform on school.com/ascend pathway to bring people, healers, and people that need healing together to let them share their skills and gifts with each other, as well as raising funds to buy land and create sustainable, environmental, affordable housing across the United States and hopefully across the world. I'm also a rapid transformational therapist, the CEO of Rising Phoenix Healing LLC, also a Reiki master. Yeah, and I'm just so excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here, and we'll put all that in the show notes, y'all, as well. So in case you want to find any of that stuff, just go in the show notes, click the links, and engage with Alex as you see fit. And so you touched upon a couple of things in that intro that Adam and I find find that are important. Number one, community, right, and kind of like building these systems to take care of each other, right? And part of the reason why we love having you on as well is just like forming community and not feeling so isolated in this world where we're doing this work. And it's like, you're not alone in trying to make the world a better place, right? You're not alone in trying to build something better. So can you just tell us a little bit about that? Like what do you envision the world to see? Like the point of writing this book, like what do you hope to see in men especially, but maybe the world at large?
Absolutely. Yes, and thank you for that. So I've noticed a lot throughout my life growing up that there seems to be an imbalance of power. It seems like the rich and the poor not even in the same ballpark. The rich are taking control, they taking advantage, dominating, while the poor are just struggling to survive. And a lot of this control is done through a patriarchy. And this has been a patriarchy that has been perpetuated through generations, through like over thousands and thousands of years, right? Since like ancient history, we can see where like the men are the rulers, and over time, the toll it's taken on our women and our culture and our society, in our planets, especially, is just irreparable damage, and it's time for change. And so, while with writing this book, I really intend for it to reach as many people as possible. I'm hoping for it to find its way into the hearts of men that are deemed toxic, but I would not like to address them as toxic, but we're all just wounded, right? And being born into a system that cultivates wounded masculinity, where we don't address our emotions, we act rash, and we react in ways that are not beneficial to the growth of our society, our communities, our civilization. And so with this book, it offers men an opportunity to not only have the grace and the understanding that it's not their fault that they are the way that, the society made us, but it raises awareness. And once you become aware, now it becomes our responsibility and we're allowed to become accountable. But it also allows for introspection and the ability to take a look at oneself, understand that, okay, this is what's happening to me. This is what happened. This is how I can make the difference. This is how I can change myself to better serve the collective.
That's awesome, and I appreciate that explanation. That's something Steven and I talk about a lot is the accountability, right? It's like we're not necessarily to blame for what has happened in our lives, the traumas that happened as children, but we are responsible for cleaning up that mess because no one else is going to do it.
Mhm.
And something you touched on in your book was the masked masculine, and yeah, I wondered if you could if that applies to this or how you see that, or if you could explain that a little bit more for our listeners, that concept.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, so the masked masculine is based on the amount of like the different types of masks that we wear or the facades that we place upon ourselves, whether they be to project some sort of dominance or control, to perpetuate that we are in charge or we have everything under control, or it's something that is completely unaware to us, like as far as a personality that we adopt. One of the masks that I notice that I really don't like is like the douchebag kind of guy who he just is not very nice and he's being mean and bullying to everyone around him to protect himself from taking a look at what he really is. And it's showing that he needs, I mean, those type of behaviors are a reflection that that person needs to take a look at themselves, right? And other masks can include things such as, I mean, behavioral dysfunction. And I mean, a lot of it becomes like unaware downward spiraling. I mean, drug abuse can be a big
I'm gonna
aspect of
say,
it.
yeah, I'm gonna say even addiction for sure. Another one of my favorite topics from your book was the rising fall of man, and I know this is all like really interconnected. The way that we're showing up, and it's all very simple and also very complex at the same time. Um, so I know that that was one that jumped out at me though, was the rising fall of man, and I think that it's kind of connected to the masks and to the whole issue because uh, ultimately we're looking at avoidance that we've been dealing with, right? Like we've been avoiding doing that real work, and anyway, so maybe you could just talk a little bit more on that rising fall of man. Is that applicable?
All right. Yeah. So the rising fall of man. So
Yep.
essentially, what this is how man has used its power and control to gain so much dominance over its people. And while doing so, it has lowered its vibrational status. A lot of these I can see in like major religions, governments, where they are doing things that seem to be best for the civilization, but the way they're doing it is creating a gash amongst its civilians, right? So we'll find ourselves becoming morally bankrupt based on this pursuit of dominance and power. And throughout the ages, it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And we've begun to accept it as this is just the way things are. When in
Yeah.
fact, we are losing ourselves. We are losing our spiritual connection. I mean, right now, I mean, just in the aspect of what we've done to our planet and our connection with nature, like it's rare to be able to like just like go out to nature. I mean, like a lot of us live in apartment buildings. We're all boxed in, and we're just fed so much stuff through the television, being brainwashed and not being able to connect with our inner selves to the point where we are completely dependent on our governments. And I don't believe that they have our best interest in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. We really kind of sold ourselves out, and it seems so incredibly obvious when we just take a moment to pause and look at it. But like, I'll just put the question to both of you guys: like, what do you think it is that keeps us distracted from being able to see that? Because in these moments of clarity, it seems so obvious, as I said.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, a lot of things is the distractions. and by keeping us in survival mode, right? Because we're always struggling
Yeah.
to survive. We're always trying to make ends meet. We work 8 hours a day or more to live in a place that we can barely afford. And we're just exhausted all the time. I mean, food's getting more and more expensive. We don't even grow it ourselves, and like the energy that's going into our food, it's not our own energy. It's not loving energy. It's being mass produced, wrapped in plastic, shipped across the country, and processed to the point that it's actually bad for our bodies.
Yeah.
And then that just perpetuates our need for medical attention. Whereas if we listen to our bodies, we don't really need to go, like, we would need a lot less like hospitals if we paid attention to the issue before it got that far.
Right. The whisper before the shout.
Exactly. Yeah. And then they're trying to mask that with like prescriptions, like, oh, you have a problem, we're just going to numb you with this prescription. So we feel better, but we're not getting better.
Exactly.
Now we're living in we got to the point where it's almost like we're all just mindless drones doing what they want us to do just so that we can put food on the table and just go to work the next day. And the moment we start waking up, they seem to feel threatened. They're frightened and they tighten the grip.
Yeah. Yeah, when we're egocentric, when we're focused on our only on the survival of the body, we miss those greater things further up the pyramid of awareness, right? So it makes sense. I mean, a lot of us are talking about this in different ways, but saying the same thing, right? It's like these systems of control that have brought fear in to divide us and to keep us in our lower energy centers and not expanding our awareness. So man, it's cool that you're bringing this through in your own voice, and really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and maybe to tie in to Adam, like kind of like the next topic. I mean, you mentioned rich and poor in your introduction, right? And Adam and I's parents are the boomer generation, and it's like I've said this before, but it's like I don't want to just shit on the boomer generation, but it's like I've mentioned before, like some lovely friendships in older generations, but the point being is that something I hear a lot from older generations that it's like, like I had to suffer, so like you need to suffer. And it's like, well, isn't the point of like trying to make the world a better place, an easier place, like building something that's easier for our children and grandchildren? And you said, yeah, the rich don't care about us. All that to just loop in. You talk a lot about narcissism, right, in your book, and so that's kind of me looping that point in. Can you speak on that? I mean, you had some crazy stories. I don't want to read the book, y'all, if you want to dive into them, but do you want to touch upon any of those and just like what you're seeing in society at large, and on the in certain individuals, right, and just how harmful that can be, right, just when people are so self-absorbed, um and not trying to get better or offer any solutions, or anything of the sort for society and for themselves, for the people around them, their communities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually do want to point out, so I also am, or my parents are also the same generation of baby boomers. And the one thing that I want to make sure that I don't do is this book's not about blame, right? So, and I knew
Right.
growing up, I had so much animosity towards like my family and society, blaming them, being like, oh, you're ruining everything for us, blah, 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 blah. But I want to make it very clear that it's not, I don't want to put the blame on them. They all did the best that they could with what they were given, right? Right. And that's something that I do mention in the book. I mean, and with narcissism as well, I mean, it's really easy for people to hop on the hate narcissist bandwagons, right? And yeah, narcissists are dangerous people. They're very dangerous people. And I've got a lot of stories. I put a few of them in the book. I had to kind of tone them down a little bit because the actual experiences were a little bit worse. Um, but at the same time, like everyone that's born, they're born innocent. I would love to believe that every child, you look at their first day of being alive, like that's an innocent baby right there. And it's what shapes them and twists them is their experience, their environment, and uh, as far as like the rising and fall of man, that all plays into it. So like the vibrational status and the environment just slowly twists and changes, just like a like a very tiny amount, generation to generation, like in a fairly acceptable way, right? So it's like, that's a little bit pushing it, but then the next generation pushes the envelope a little bit further, and now we're in a place where narcissism is rampant. Like, oh my God, like you see narcissists everywhere, you see memes all over the internet, like this is how you identify narcissists, this is how you get away from them, which is very useful information. But narcissism, it's, I don't, from the research that I've done, it's not a psychological disorder you're born with. It's something that you develop based on your environment, what happens to you.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah. And so like with narcissism, it's so dangerous. So you have to like be very careful how you tread with this one, because you want to keep yourself safe and you want to keep yourself away from narcissists. But at the same time, like these narcissists are this way because they had lack of love and they had traumas that they endured that pushed them towards being this way. So
Absolutely.
there's an aspect of compassion towards narcissism or narcissists, but at the same time, like their unwillingness to take a look at themselves is what makes them so dangerous. So once they reach a point that's I mean where it all kind of wraps up to is like the willingness to take a look at yourself. And like the worst thing you can do is call a narcissist, right? Like that'll just get them full on target you and take aim on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, I think it's important to understanding oneness, or at least, on that journey toward understanding oneness, to recognize that we've all got some of that within us. Because if we're noticing it, if we're magnetizing it into our reality, my belief is that it's because our reality is mirroring back our inner selves, and there's something in there that needs to be cleaned. So, again, if we're talking about not othering people and not blaming and everything, we can really move into this space of recognizing that narcissists can be, we can see them as a gift in our lives. Not that we need to be spending time around them, and we can be loving them from a distance, but recognizing that if we have had that experience, it's come up for a reason, and to show us something within ourselves. And if we are feeling like calling someone else a narcissist, at least in my journey, like I had to really get to the place of recognizing that maybe there's something in me that I need to look at first. And in order to fully accept that person, and that, fully accepting that person, again, like you said, they're not generally not safe. I'm not going to choose to have them close to me in my life, but again, loving from afar, finding that place of acceptance so I can be at peace.
Absolutely. That was a powerful thing you just said. With the narcissism too. So being exposed to narcissists, that plays into our programming, right? So if you're around a bunch of narcissists, there's a chance you're going to pick something up from them, and maybe you'll say
Oh,
something
absolutely.
that's not narcissistic. Doesn't mean you're a narcissist, but it's like that's what you're used to. That's how you react to some things. So I want viewers to remember, like, don't be terribly too quick to judge. If somebody does something narcissistic, it doesn't mean that they are at their core a narcissist, right?
Yeah. And we got to recognize that we live in a narcissistic society, right? Like Western culture, the amount of resources that we take compared to the rest of the world. Stephen and I have talked about this before. That sort of very highly individualistic society and culture. It's kind of, the way we celebrate like celebrities, and the way our media works. It To me, at least, it looks very narcissistic. So it makes sense that we would all have a little bit of that within us. As a collective, we have to do our individual shadow work to help with the collective shadow work as well.
Yes. And I love how you mentioned that, like, what is this person there to teach me? Like, what are they reflecting back to me? Because that's huge, right? Because we are a mirror of each other. Everyone that you see is just a reflection of like who you are. All right. So I love the point that you said, did not like what narcissists can show us on the inner work that we can do, right?
Right.
Because we are all reflections of each other. We are all mirrors. And narcissists, I mean, like you mentioned, like they actually, there can be silver lining there. They can show you where you have the work, the healing work to do. But it's all at the same time, it's very important for boundaries. And the boundaries
Yes.
are the way that you can, that's where a narcissist's true colors are shown. If you place a boundary and they just explode, red flag. Red flag right there. I mean, you got to respect yourself. You got to put down your boundaries and honor yourself above all.
Yeah, you
Absolutely.
talk about that in the book, right? Like different types of boundaries. Do you want to dive more into that a little bit for people and just explore that for us? I really liked what you had to say in the book.
Yeah, absolutely. One that is a lesser known boundary that is very relevant today, especially with politics that's going on at the moment, is our intellectual boundaries. This one doesn't get brought up too often, but this is basically coming to an understanding that the person you're interacting with, you will not see this, you will not see like eye to eye on a certain issue. So when I mentioned politics, like Republicans and Democrats, you can still have a great relationship with somebody if you set that boundary. We're not going to talk about politics, right? And then you got time boundaries, like I'm only going to give you this much of my time. And there's a respectful way to say all these things. There's financial boundaries. If somebody comes to you asking for money, being like, I'm not in a place where I can help you with that, or this is as much as I can help, and that's it. There's the various different types of boundaries, and the emotional boundaries too. Like if you're getting into an argument with somebody, they say stuff that ignites your like emotions. Let them know, I can't have this conversation with you. I need time to process, and then we can come back to it later, but under these terms where we can't discuss certain subjects. And doing these with your boundaries is a declaration of self-respect that if you don't listen, then I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you out of my life if it goes that far, which is one of the biggest, most difficult parts of the boundaries. I mean, it's easier to put the boundary down, but sticking to it, that's what changes everything.
Yeah. And this is interesting stuff because it I find it interesting because it is so simple, right? Like a lot of the stuff that we talk about when we're discussing men's work seems like stuff we should have learned in preschool and kindergarten. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's just
Yeah.
absolutely.
like but the fact that I mean, in my own experience, I've had so many conversations with women where where I hear shocking stories and I'm myself as well. I'm not that this is a journey and I haven't always been in this in this place. I've had a more toxic expression in my younger years for sure. But recognizing that some of the things that women I've dated have said, for example, like, "Oh, you're good at sharing." That's what I was told that, and I was like, "Good at sharing? Like, what what are we
What does
in
that
grade
mean?
1 kind of thing?" And it's like that, but that's how men have been showing up. Again, we've been coddled and, kind of been raised to be so narcissistic that these basic things like boundaries are big news for a lot of guys out there, like just simple clear boundaries and like, no, you can't do that to someone else, you can't ask that of someone else. It's like it's the realization on how like crazy that is just profound for me. But it's like it is so important to be having these conversations on boundaries and like explaining these like week one principles to people and men specifically, as we're talking about here, the toxic masculine expression. um but yeah, I mean, like, do you guys just find that wild? Like we gotta, because I do.
Yeah, I'm like, why aren't we taught, a lot of this stuff, growing up? It's like how to control your emotions too. Like,
Yeah,
especially as men, it's like, I see a lot of men in grown bodies with the strength of grown men, but it's like, they're still, maybe the emotional capacity of like a younger person, right?
yeah,
And it's like, we're not taught these things, these tools in the tool belts on just how to navigate the world, society, and ourselves, most importantly. And it's just like why we're talking about it, right? Yeah, it feels like 101. Like, yeah, there should be like some stuff that like little kids are taught, right? But
yeah,
it's like, okay, like here we are as adults, like having to unlearn and relearn,
yeah.
which is great. Like, let's do it. Let's
Yeah,
dive in,
I know, right?
why we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing that I really want to drive home with boundaries is, so with physical boundaries especially, and when it's women towards men, like, so consent is given freely and revocable at any time.
Mhm.
So if you say yes, you're okay with something, women, and you change your mind, say that, and it's okay. And
Yeah,
guys, when a woman, or when, I mean, anyone essentially places a boundary, it's not personal. It's not about something you did wrong or something that they're mad at you about. It's something that they're doing for their own personal self, and it's not an attack. It's just
yeah,
them saying, "I need the space." And I actually encourage boundaries to be placed at the very beginning of any kind of interaction or relationship, to somewhat test the waters and to kind of see where that goes. You don't want to get 3 months into a relationship and find out that your man will not respect your boundaries whatsoever. Then it might be a little bit too late for you to reevaluate that situation. Find out early on, and if it's something that you need to bring up, you're like, I placed a boundary with you, you didn't respect that, see where that goes. That will give you a great understanding of whether that relationship is for you or not.
yeah, yeah. And consent, like you said, consent is an ongoing thing, right? It's like something that can and should be reaffirmed as we move through any interaction or relationship. Because things change, people change, people's ideas and concepts and boundaries change. So that consent topic has to be an ongoing conversation. At least in my opinion.
Yes. And then there was this, in one of the interviews I had, I was really, really glad that this woman brought this up. It's respecting the other person's nervous systems. So
Mm,
as you're engaging with somebody, you can tell when their tone changes, when they get triggered. And in that moment, being able to respect that person's nervous system. Because, like, all right, if I'm having an argument with my girlfriend and something just triggers me and I start attacking, right? And I don't think, like, I'm in PTSD mode, I start saying stuff that I don't mean. If she's able to recognize, like, oh, this isn't Alex, something just happened in his nervous system. To be, I mean, I would love to be able to be like, I got triggered. Can we come back to this? But if she's able to say, I noticed something changed in you, let's put a pin in this, bring it up later. And
yeah,
that speaks volumes, just because, I mean, then it just saves so much. Because I was thinking, like, wow, like, if she didn't stop me, or if I didn't stop that argument, like, we could have just kept going until it just, because, like, one trigger will turn the other person into, like, trigger the other
yeah,
person, and it'll just go back and forth. And before you know it,
Yeah.
everything is just smashed to pieces.
Yeah. Death spiral. you know. But yeah, no, I really appreciate that conversation, and just bring that up. Yeah, again, it's like, yeah, this elementary stuff, but it's important. It's important for us to bring it up. And something else, kind of we touched upon before, was just like, speaking of childhood, right? Like, just like growing up and like what it means to be a man, right? Like, and just kind of like that idea that I was instilled. Adam had a different idea. Alex, I know you grew up Mormon, right? Last
Yeah,
time we
yeah,
spoke, and you kind of had, I grew up Catholic and, Irish Catholic in Boston. And so it's like, these different ideas of what it is to be like a man in the world. And just, how warped I think, you know, a lot of what we heard growing up was. And, you know, again, this elementary stuff that probably should, you know, should be taught to us as children, you know, but it's just not. I'm like, what a healthy man looks like. So can you just speak a little bit about that? You know, maybe your experience of like, you know, maybe what you were told growing up, or, you know, what you think that healthy perspective is for manhood, you know?
Absolutely. That's a big one. So for so many of us, we weren't given the opportunity to be little boys, right? It seems like right out the gate, it's like you got to be a man, you got to be a man. And especially for those that for our single mothers out there and they have little boys, the father leaves, that little boy just took the man responsibility of the house. Now they have to pull it together and take care of the little brothers or sisters, and they don't have the opportunity to emotionally grow or develop naturally like we should as humans, right? If you're a kid, you should be a kid. And this leads into a lot of inner child work, which is what I'm going to be putting into the second edition. But because so many of us just got robbed of that. And a lot of the things that's, I mean, for me, it was just a contest all the time. Who was toughest? Who was strongest? It was, I mean, and we were always fighting for affection or attention from my dad. And it was based off of like how good at sports you were, how strong you were, how, like, if you cried, you're not a man. I mean, a natural human emotion that all of us feel. Like if you're gonna laugh, you're gonna be sad. They're part of the same spectrum, right? All the emotions we're here to feel, and to shut one out, that stunts us emotionally,
Yeah.
and then we begin to behave in ways that's well, that's where anger comes out, right? Because we're all masking all of our other emotions with anger rather than feeling the spectrum of them and the different ways that we are. I mean, to be a man as a child to be a man as a child is just unheard of. But it happens to so many of us,
Yeah.
right? Like, did you guys have
Y
that experience?
yeah, dude, I had some crazy, I played, like, Pop Warner football, you know, like, Pee Wee football, and, like, man, you would have thought, like, we were, like, going to war, you know? As
Oh, I
we're,
know,
like,
right? Yeah.
you know, like, 6-year-old, 8-year-old little boys, like, you know what I mean? And they're like, "Get ready for war," you know, like, you know, just, oh my god, you know, and, like and, like, the grown men are working out their issues through, like, the children, you know what I mean? Like, it's, like, in an unhealthy way. But, yeah, yeah, my dad too, you know, I remember, you know, mental toughness and, you know, just these memories of just like, yeah, you know, you're supposed to be, and I get like, yeah, like, it's like if, you know, I think it is important to be strong in this world. Like, you know, we talk a lot where it's like, you know, the Buddhist philosophy where it's like suffering is kind of the point of being here. You know, it's like that's kind of in learning how to deal with that and navigate through that and, you know, find the meaning in that. But at the same time, it's like, you know, that doesn't mean you have to tamp down your emotions and be a drone, like you
Right.
said, or be a robot, you know? It's like you need to acknowledge that stuff and let it breathe. And in order to, yeah, in order to be healthy and to handle it in an effective way, right? In a healthy way. Because it's like life is
Yeah.
hard, but it's like you don't need to be in a silo or, you know, alone or, you know, or just bottle it up and shove it down because that's how we see these unhealthy patterns in men. Um, Happen, right? You know, or like the suicide rates or the addictions or, you know, any of these or the violence that, you know, we see
Mhm.
committed or, you know, schools or, you know, churches or whatever. And especially in America. But yeah, yeah, you know, it's just like of course I've seen that, you know, Adam. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know if you know, you felt you've seen similar things growing up in your, you know, in your childhood.
Sorry, were you asking me there?
Yeah, yeah, if you know, like your experience as
Oh,
well, you
yeah.
know, if you
Yeah.
resonate with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think an important point that I want to note is understanding that toxic masculinity and like patriarchal values don't just come through men. And this again, you know, we're not blaming anybody, but we're also like including everybody at the same time.
Mhm.
Because a lot of the some of the most toxic masculine stuff that I learned as a kid actually came from some of the women in my family, right? It's just stuff that they had been programmed with that they were unconsciously passing on, right? Like again, like, you know, boys are supposed to be tough, boys don't cry. Like it came from the men as well, but it some of the worst of it actually in my personal experience came through women. which was like, uh kind of given me that image, like coming from the women, that like I'm supposed to be that way, and like even and women really expect that, which is super toxic. So that was that was part of my experience. And then yeah, just very early on, you know not having a lot of presence at home, and end up getting kind of raised by other kids too, or like friends' older brothers being kind of like the male role models in my life. And it was like that was not good, being introduced to like drugs and porn by like friends' older brothers, and at a really young age. And that was all, as I see it now, very damaging. And then having those ideas and values kind of pressed upon me really led into the formation of an identity of what I thought I was supposed to be. And that led into being a firefighter, you know um I think, had I not had all those kind of things impressed upon me, I would have been, like an artist or something like that. But it's like, no, you got to be tough, you got to be hard, you got to do something intense. And absolutely not. I totally disagree with that now. I really think that owning whatever our true essence is the most masculine flex that we can make. So um yeah, I think, yeah, we've all had the same experience, and dressed up slightly differently, dealing with this the masculine archetype that we've been sold in our society. So yeah, man.
Yeah, that actually, I'm actually glad you brought up that point with the women. That wraps things, or that brings things around full circle. So when I was talking about how, like, we are in this patriarchy where we have to work so much, so what that does, like, that takes our father away from us. He has to go to work to pay the bills. So now we are left home without a role model to teach us what it is to be to be a man. And it's not his fault. His father did it to him. His father did it to him. It's not. It goes way far back. But now we don't know, and we're just picking up what we think a man should be based off of what we see on TV, what we see the
Totally.
media. And then when we're going to meet women, these women are like, well, you're not a man because this is what I believe a man should be. Therefore, like, the guy, like, I'll just use myself as an example. I didn't feel like I was fulfilling the man role. And I was getting shamed by women, being like, you're not a man. And then that shame led me to self-destructive behaviors. In my
Mm,
case, it was self-harm, drug addiction. In other people's case, it is a lot of times narcissism, or like lashing out, or anger, or violence. And so like, then that person ends up leaving their wife, and it becomes this vicious downward spiral. And we're all a part of it. It's not just men, it's not just women. But if we're gonna find our way back, it's getting that understanding, like, holy shit, we're here where we are now. How are we gonna fix it?
yeah,
Yeah, with compassion, right? Understanding, being like, I understand where you're coming from. Here's the grace, here's the love. I accept the hurt parts of you, the wounded parts of you, accepting the parts of yourself that you hate. Understand that they were there for a reason, and letting them go so you can replace them with who you actually want to be. And that actually kind of drives
absolutely.
into our ego segments of the book, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and when we're taking accountability and accepting ourselves and others, we're kind of disengaging from that victim narrative, which I believe is a huge part of the narcissist. That, like, the narcissist archetype is believing, like, from my experience, see, like, the narcissist really believes they're a victim, and they're kind of taking it out on
Very
the
victim.
world. And yeah, that's like a good segue into the ego conversation, because that's like an extreme expression of the ego, like the finite separate sense of self, is like narcissism. So what do you look at, well, I know you touched on the book, and maybe you could explain a little bit here, like a healthy egoic expression.
Yeah, yeah. And just to touch on the narcissism and victim thing, there is a chance that the narcissist was very victimized
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
early childhood, right? But it's that
Yeah.
holding
Oh,
on to
yeah.
it. And there's the this happened to me, so I'm a victim. I'm like, there are victims, but adopting that as your personality is something that we want to get over and alleviate. But our ego, so ego, you say the word ego, and in today's world, a lot of the times it's like a bad thing, right? It's just like, oh, let your ego go. Your ego's controlling you. Like our ego is our identity. Our ego is what's a survival mechanism. We've been using it since ancient times, since like cavemen. It's what we use to fit in, to prepare ourselves for the future, to protect ourselves from danger, right? And once we got past the survival state, and as communities and civilizations grew, ego started to transform into how do I best fit into my community? And now it's things that, I mean, a lot of ego programming is based on your family and like what you encounter societally. So, example, like if you like sports, would you like sports if your family didn't like sports? Right? Like if you were born in a family that didn't like it, and like a lot of people adopt this, like, oh yeah, I love sports, and like because you got a huge community of people that love sports. Is it because
Yeah.
you actually like the game or you like the community? Right?
Sense of
And that's just
belonging.
one example. Yeah. Um, and things like being, I mean, like action hero movies, like, ooh, I want to be that guy. You're like, you know, and so you start behaving like the thing you want to be, or the thing that you think other people like, and you begin to lose who you truly are. And by behaving that way, you're essentially lying to your inner self. Like, I'm being somebody I'm not. And when people don't like me, then it hurts because like I don't even know who I am. And then when people like you, it feels empty because that's not who you are. So taking a look back at like who am I really, strip away all the programming that you've had your entire life. And a good practice for this is go back to your early childhood. What did you like the most when you were a kid, right? Like what were your favorite toys? What were you into the most? That's your core stuff before the programming starts settling into your psyche, and then finding out what things do you actually like and rebuilding your ego from the ground up to build and strengthen your authentic self. And once you begin doing that, you'll notice an inner power that you never had before. And like no one can shake you. Doesn't matter who likes you or what they think of you. This is who I am. And the best part about this is this will allow you to attract the people that you actually like. Like if you actually like playing volleyball, play volleyball. People that like volleyball will find you. Right? But if you're lying to
Love it.
yourself and you're playing Call of Duty just because your friends are, you're going to attract people that play Call of Duty and you're going to feel hollow or empty.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
I like that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, dude, there was one other thing that I kind of want to touch upon, Adam. I don't know if you have any other thoughts as well, but I think you did a great job of discussing like spirituality and psychology, and I think in a lot of ways I think those are so intertwined because it's like, is are we, souls having consciousness, having a human experience, and it's like, and this thrust in this human body with a human brain, but it's like, and I think that yeah, not often do you hear psychology talked about in tandem with spirituality, right? Or so I just, can we talk about that a little bit? I really found that to be an interesting part of the book as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you guys heard of the concept that we aren't humans having a spiritual experience? We are spirits having a human experience?
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
Or like rather than our spirit being inside of our body is inside our spirit, which is everywhere, right? And spirit is very connected with consciousness. And when we're looking at spirituality, spirituality came before the physical form, right? Before this third dimensional body that we're in. So, in some semblance, our psychology, our psyche came through, or it's replicated as a different manifestation of our of spirit. So we are creating and altering our reality in way more ways than we're aware of. But in this three-dimensional body is all connected in our brains. And so we're connecting that as like psychology. This is how the brain works. This is how the mind works. But a lot of it is how the universe works. So being able to keep these two things relevant to one another, not separating them, because when we separate these things, that's where we can find ourselves in a dissonance with behavior. Like, oh, your behavior is doing this thing, your spirit's doing this thing. They're very connected. They're very connected.
Yeah. At all
Yeah.
levels, it's a micro macro reflection. Oneness applies to
Absolutely.
everything. So it's important to recognize that. Yeah, if we don't have that awareness integrated, then that is going to show up as those dissonant behaviors, because and that's the and that dissonant behavior is not something to shame or push away. That's the signpost pointing us inward to recognize that there's something to be resolved within us.
Absolutely. I mean, and that goes into, so with psychology being so prevalent today, and it seems like spirituality has been lost. And that's where a lot of the pharmaceuticals come in, where it's like, you have a disorder based off of whatever the case. Here, take this drug to fix it. And that drug cuts you off from your spirit. At least in my experience, I was one of those like first Ritalin kids, right? Like 8 years old, you're on Ritalin, which is not a really healthy drug for a child to be taking. And realizing that these not psychosomatic, these psychological disorders we have are a result of our absence of spirit, right? So rather than understanding what got us there, listening to our bodies, listening to like our environment, feeling our like listening from our heart space, we're ignoring these things, which if we focused on or paid attention to our spirit more often, we wouldn't have to worry about taking any like psychoactive drugs to compensate for where we've gone with our like mental capacity, or yeah, where we've gotten with our just yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that totally makes sense. It's all a game of awareness, of consciousness. And when we're taking these drugs that are suppressing our awareness in an attempt to deal with symptoms of a spiritual problem, it's like, rather than going to the root of the problem, we're just dealing with the symptoms. And like, I had the same experience. I was medicated at 7 years old with like heavy antidepressants, and it's like, you should be giving that to a kid, and numbed me out to everything, and it made me more prone to addiction. And yeah, it's totally a surface level symptomology approach. It's just like completely missing the point. And then we have a whole society that is so geared toward uh, looking at things only from the intellect, only through the mind, no spiritual, no heart-centered awareness. It's like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Looking at us as machines, and like, oh, there's something off with your brain chemistry. We just need to tinker with that part. We just need to put a chemical in there to fix the problem. And it's like, it's not just, one broken cog in the machine. It's like, we're if we're applying oneness to the greater understanding of our universe, we have to apply it to ourselves as well. If there's something wrong, if we have a symptom, it's because there's something deeper going on. Again, a holistic
Exactly.
view. Yeah.
Yeah, and the brain is so complex. Like, we really shouldn't be playing God by going in there and throwing in different chemicals, ingredients, trying to
Exactly.
fix it ourselves, right? Like, it's intense. And like, that's the same thing. Like, you're put on drugs, so you're missing what the actual issue is. And now you're to the age you are now, and those issues never got resolved. So now you're going to have to go back and like figure out what it was that
Absolutely.
got you. And that's, I mean, what's
Adding to the
bizarre is that,
problem, I would say.
yeah,
Adding to the original problem. It's like now you got two things to
exactly.
like
Yeah.
unpack
Oh
and
yeah,
figure out.
absolutely. Yeah.
And then it gets to the point where it's just so, and like, the longer you go without addressing it, the harder it is to access those emotions. The more painful it is to access those emotions, which just facilitates more ease of like, oh, I'll just take some drugs for this. I'll take some drugs for this. And
Yeah.
something that is really, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna add because with that more time passing, we have more opportunity to layer on more and more masks, and it's harder to look, harder to see the truth beneath them. But I was just gonna add that.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Well, and that also leads into, I don't know if you guys have heard much about like generational trauma.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
someone could be like, "Oh, I've lived 80 years. I don't want to go do the personal work. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and
Yeah,
I'll just die with my problem." Like, bro, you're passing that on to your kids. Your kids are
yeah,
they're going to be born with your psychological issues, not knowing where they came from, which is much more difficult to deal with, especially in a world where they're like, "What's wrong with you? There's nothing. You have no reason to be sad or upset." Like, it's like, "Yeah, dude, I've got all these emotions. I don't even know whose they are." And now that person's required, or it's their responsibility, if they want to heal the generational trauma, to do the work of their ancestors, which it's not easy. Like, I've been doing that. This past month has just been like generation after just like, oh God. And like, my family doesn't get it. You know, like, I tell my mom, I'm like, yeah, you and I, because she's also going through a lot, like all these issues. They can't, no doctor can figure out what's wrong with her. It's
yeah.
been years. She's in tons of pain. And I'm like, Mom, it's because you and I are doing the works for the entire family. So it's like it's landing on us, and I'm over here like exhausted every other day of the week, going through like, I mean, it's emotional flare ups, and then like going, like, it kind of mimics bipolar what I've been going through the past week alone, honestly. Um, Actually, this morning I woke up just in a horrible state of mind, but it just comes back and just comes back around where we're responsible to take care of our emotions, and it's really not that hard. If an emotion comes up, just feel it, just feel it. And I want
Yeah.
our society to be in a place where that's okay. We can be like, all right, just give me a second, you guys. I just got to feel this emotion for a moment. It usually only takes 45 seconds to a minute, as long as you don't stick to the story and keep repeating the feedback loop and telling yourself, oh, I'm a shitty person, I'm a bad person.
Yeah.
Just
Pushing it
feel
down.
feeling, let go, move on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would
Yeah.
be a much more enlightened society.
We're working
We'll get
towards.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's probably a good place to cap it, y'all. And Alex, sorry to hear about what your mother's going through, but I'm sure you're in her life for a reason right now, and guiding her through it. Kind of parenting the parent in a way.
Yeah, yeah. Funny you should mention that. It's kind of what's going on. I mean, to a point, right? You know,
Right.
like in different ways. In different ways, like I still love them to death, and I
Totally.
just have a different perspective from what I've been through.
Totally. Totally. No, there's knowledge can be transferred, between generations, for sure. Younger to older, and vice versa. Like it's, there's it can be a powerful exchange, despite age. Um, so yeah, I'm sure she's grateful for that. And yeah, any closing thoughts that you wanna, impart to the audience? Anything that you wanna, yeah, just wrap things up with. And of course, like I said, all your information will be in the show notes. But yeah, if there's any final plugs, for the book or anything, please hit us with them right now.
Yeah, so I mean, you can find the book on Amazon.com. I strongly encourage anyone who's looking for healing, or if you are a healer, please join my online community. It's $10 a month. You get way more out of it than, I mean, you have access to dozens of healers at this point, hopefully hundreds soon. The incentive is to, or the intention is to create communities of just living off the land, severing ourselves from the reliance of the government and our leaders, because I don't feel like they've got our best interest in mind. We can take care of ourselves. It's time to build the new earth.
Yeah. Well, folks, if you like what you heard, please find Alex, support him on the show notes, and then yeah, if you like what you heard on Oneself, leave a comment, subscribe, engage with us. If you have any thoughts, we'd love to hear them. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Oneself. We'll see you next time, folks.